All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Nothing for Nothing Leaves Nothing podcast. I am your host, Lewis. In today's topic, we're going to talk about elders. Let's talk about it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the episode, and we're going to talk about elders, like I said. So let's look at what a definition or meaning of the word elder is. So one definition is a person who is older. An elder is someone who is older than you or a senior. For example, you might refer to your sister or brother as an elder if he or she is a few years older than you. An elder is someone who has authority due to their age and experience. For example, a village elder is someone who has authority in the village. From a church perspective, an elder is a governing officer in some, this list as Protestant churches, who helps run the church. Most churches, especially from that I know of, usually an elder is usually somebody that just designated somebody that helps run the church. Now, from a biblical standpoint, let's look at what an elder is. An elder is a person who is valued for wisdom and holds a position of responsibility and authority. So now, when we talk about elders, the reason I wanted to do this episode on elders is because the world and society we live in now don't really take care of the older folks too much. And what I mean by that is there is a lot of neglect, animosity at times, and just in my opinion, just overall versions of disrespect when it comes to elders. So when you think about elders and having a level of respect for them, like if you listen to the definitions, how they were broken down, it's a person that is older than you. In my viewpoint, usually somebody, in their elder years, so like, an older auntie. Usually when you think elders, most people usually go to the default thinking of grandparents or people of that, that kind of age group of being an elder. And a lot of times I find myself sitting back and I'm wondering, like, what happened to society? Like when I grew up, it was a big thing on respecting your elders, for one. So giving them their just due and respect, minding your manners when you're around elders, and making sure that you listen to them because they were always a wealth of knowledge. And it seems like with the world that we live in now, social media age, digital age, people have gotten away from the general concept of talking to elders, like leaning on elders to get that experience, to get that information, to get that knowledge of things in the world. Now, obviously, as times change and things progress, people might feel like, oh, their knowledge is outdated. They don't know. They don't understand. But if you notice how life works a lot of the time, and as they say, history ends up repeating itself at any point in time and given moment, those experiences that they went through, those life lessons that they learned can be beneficial to you as you grow and as you go through your own life. Because you might come across a situation at some point in time that advice that they've given you will be a benefit to you. And to think about that, and for people to just sit around and constantly be losing out on that knowledge is just mind blowing to me, right? Like I remember sitting around with my uncles at different points in time and, getting knowledge from them, feedback from them on, do's and don'ts, how to live, how not to live, and just giving you a sense of, and at the end of it, a sense of structure. Gives you that guidance that you might need to be able to get through a situation or how to address a situation when it comes up. And to give you that foundation of setting the standard of how things are and how things should potentially be. Now, this information that they were giving you is not, as they say, it wouldn't be the gospel in a sense, but it was something that you can hold on to and you could use as a reference to always go back to when things were happening in life. And if you go through and look at things now, just from a respect standpoint, how many people go to an old folks, or I would say a retirement home, just to go help out the elderly? How many people go if you're in the supermarket or at a store and you see an elderly person in the supermarket and you know they're standing in an aisle because they can't reach something, but they might be hesitant to ask or scared to ask. Just people having that general good sense of being a good person to help them out. I've seen it when I've gone to the supermarket to get groceries and you'll walk in the aisle, and depending on what time you go, usually if you're going there, in my case out here in Texas, if you're going earlier in the morning, you might see a lot of the older folks in there doing their shopping and things of that nature, because they usually get up, they have their routines, they go to the store to get what they need to get, and then they take themselves back home. But you'll be in there and you'll be watching and you'll see a person, because they're shorter or they, whatever the situation is, that they can't reach something or get something, and you will literally watch people just literally walk past them consistently. Nobody stopping to help or do anything. For me, usually when I see it, first thing I do is stop. Hey, do you need help with something? Usually they might say yes, or if they say no, because they might just be there in thought. But just having the general courtesy to ask, right, goes a long way. And you sit there and I'm just looking like, man, what happened? Like I said, because growing up, that was a very, very big thing, right? You'll respect your elders. You'll try to help them out, try to do little things to, try to make their life easier, because, they had been through the struggle. They had been through some stuff. And it's like, now it's like people just don't care. And it's sad, because these are the people that laid the foundation for you to be where you are and for us to get to where we are now. Now, is it saying that everything they did was perfect? No. But at the end of the day, you still should have something in you that will want to be able to help them just like they helped you. For a lot of people, you have some people that were raised by their elders, right? So like a grandparent or an aunt or uncle, whatever the situation may be. And they pretty much see those individuals as parents. So those folks usually tend, not all the time, tend to give them a little extra, because they're filling a double role, right? They're still being your auntie and aunt, but they're also being a mother or a father to you, and being a guide or a focal point for you to have your overall general makeup established. And as you go through that, you just sit back and say, cool, right? Kudos to them. That's what they should do, and that's what should be done. But like I said, if you look at the culture and how things are rolling in the world now, where it's like people are so quick to just dismiss somebody because they're older, and then I look at that piece, I'm like, man, that's a trip, right? Then you sit there and you look like, well, why is that? Do people not know? Are people not taught that? Or people not don't have an understanding of it? Or is it something where general people nowadays, to their core, just don't have it in them to be kind to an older person? Now, most people would turn around as an argument stake and say, well, they're difficult to talk to because they're stuck in their ways and they don't want to change, and they feel like the way things were done back then were better. That's a given with everybody. Everyone feels that at their particular moment, or when they reach that age of being an elder, that the way things were done during their time was a lot simpler and easier. I would equate it to myself talking about being out of the military as opposed to when I was in the military. A lot of times, buddies of mine that were in, we'll sit there and talk, it's like, man, if the outside world had an inkling of the structure that you get in the military, things would be a lot better. On the flip side, when we were in, during that time, there were times where, you still had the same structure, stuff was going on, and you're like, man, this is dumb. This makes no sense. Why are we doing this? Does this really serve a purpose? So I can see both sides of it. But even with seeing both sides of it, I still have a strong opinion about just people just getting back to a semblance of, helping out the elderly, leaning on the elderly. I know for us, like, we had different points of time where I was able to meet, veterans from, World War II, or veterans from the Vietnam War, which is where most people don't really talk about. But having those conversations with those guys, like, you get an understanding of their makeup and the things they experienced. So if you're having a conversation with them and you're talking to them about their experiences and what they've been through, you're like, man, they've been through some stuff. And that knowledge is power. That information is key. And that's something you can draw on and learn from as you grow and as you, go through things in your life and things start to happen. Having those conversations with folks that are older than you and elder tend, I think, to serve you a better purpose, because you're getting knowledge that you're getting what they call firsthand knowledge, right? Knowledge coming directly from a source that directly experienced or went through something similar to what you may be going through. And a lot of people, instead of leaning on that, they tend to shun it. They think it's outdated or it's not relevant for whatever reason that they believe that to be true. I say it's something that we should get back to. Lean on your elders, support your elders, give them some insight from your perspective of what you're living, what you're seeing. I remember when the computer age came about, you had a lot of folks that were older that had never really dealt with computers, had a really difficult time dealing with it. I've seen it even now, just on a daily, where from just standard operation stuff, because everything is switching to digital and everything is moving towards that digital age. A lot of those folks that are older are being left behind because they don't understand it and they can't grasp the concept of it. So this is one of those times where it's like, okay, the folks that know, the younger cats, turn around and give them that information about computers, just like they taught you about learning to read and write, learn how to drive a car, learn how to cook, learn how to take care of a house, how to take care of a yard or grow a garden and things of that nature. Like these things of knowledge that, yeah, you can go online and look it up and get information about it, some of it. But why not talk to somebody firsthand, right? Somebody that's literally sitting next to you, somebody that can physically tell you about it and physically show you at the same time. What's wrong with using that resource that is there? And when I talk about culture stuff, like I always use reference to African American community because I'm African American, right? So when you think about that, like elders were always held in a very, very high regard. And I know in a lot of cultures, I speak mainly from African American perspective, but I know in a lot of cultures, elders are revered and adored and or looked to for knowledge, for information. And it's like, if that was a culture, that was what you were bred up to do. That's how you were grown, right? That's what you were taught. Why have people gotten away from it? What changed in the world that made people was like, all right, this person's old, they're senile, I don't know if they really got anything. Just kid them, put them in a home. And then they put these people away to just age themselves out, and until they unfortunately until they pass away and go back home to Jesus. And you're like, why is that? Like, I'll use for example, like I remember when my grandmother got sick and she had a surgery, and they was like, okay, well, as far as her coming home, it wasn't an option just for a variety of different reasons. So they had, she had a small stint in a home, a care center, and we literally were in that care center all the time. I know when I got off of work, I went. My aunties got off of work. My aunt got off of work. She went. My auntie came down from out of town. She stayed. She was there frequently, and it was a constant around the clock thing that she was never by herself. We was there. We were seeing folks and make sure everything was cool. And you think about putting that time and that effort in to make sure that person's okay. And then you get there and you'll see folks that's there, and then they'll be, because they all talk to each other because they don't, there's so many people there they got to talk to each other. And you're over here conversations about, I haven't seen, and they'll say whichever family member, son, daughter, whatever. And, since a good while, and you talking months, sometimes weeks, sometimes years. And you think, you're like, Dad, do you really have no care that this person is sitting there by themselves? Yes, they may be taken care of because that's the facility's job, is to take care of them. But we all know too, some of these facilities ain't always the greatest either. So you think a person's getting the proper care that they need, and you find out that they're not. But not having a thought process is like, man, let me go check on my grandma. Let me go check on my grandpa. Let me go check on my auntie. Let me go check on my uncle. Hell, even if it's your mom or dad, like, hey, let me go check on my mom. Go check on my dad. And you sit there and you just like, wow, man, like, how does that happen? Like, how do y'all not return and give that same love and affection that these people gave you when they didn't need you? They did it because obviously it was a responsibility of them, because that's how things were done back in the day. Sometimes they did stuff not because they wanted to, but because that was a responsibility and that's what they had to do. And to see people just disregard their folks, and it's like, wow, man, like, what happened, dude? Like, that's how much care you have for the person that might have given you life, or the person that might have been around to take care of you, person that helped you with, just getting yourself and lives together. And it's like, why is always my question. And if somebody could explain for me why, cool. I'm always open to listen, to have an open dialogue about it. But to me, it just seems like a lot of things, I know, for, like I said, and I'm, as I get older, I'm approaching that status of getting older. And it's like, you think about a lot of things that and experience as you grew up, and you're like, wow, what happened to those things? Like, what happened to those values? What happened to those cares that before you would see, but now you don't? And a lot of it, like I said, it might just be, generational thing, stuff that it's not bred, it's not taught, and it's not something that people keep in mind when they think about it. And the next piece of that I want to talk about is, now, when I was talking about the stuff I was talking about just now, I was talking about others that are within their right mind, just maybe a little bit older, a little bit slower, might not be able to move as fast. But what about the ones that have disabilities, right? Like, I know a lot of people come up and you see a lot of folks with, as they get older, you hear about people having Alzheimer's, dementia, things of that nature. And what about the care for those folks? Some people say they stay away because they don't want to see the person less than what they were. Understandable, but to me, in my personal opinion, I think even if you don't want to see them that way, still be there to support them, because you might be the only thing that they have. You might be the only thing that they're leaning on that's kind of keeping them, keeping their mind fresh and keeping their mind moving. And it's, like I said, it just comes down to just giving a person a level of respect. I know for my folks and my crew, like, my mom's parents were, passed on before I was, pretty much of age to be able to have a recollection of knowledge of who they were. But I had my dad's parents. So my grandmother, when she passed, well, I'm talking about when she was alive. When she was alive, her and my grandfather had split, and that's a whole controversy for a whole other day. However, even during that time, they were separated. My grandmother always used to tell us, like, hey, make sure you give him his proper respect and things of that nature. My grandfather did some weird stuff. His thought process was just weird, but I kind of halfway get it now. But then even trying to understand that, it still can be frustrating to break down. He got another woman, and that, like I said, you know how that goes. That tends to end up playing into an issue at some point. So long story short about that was, at times and points, it was like his ladies, people were here, and we were kind of here off to the side, kind of like throwaways. But despite all that going on, as much as we complained about it, we would get upset and stuff like that. My grandmother always stood true. It was like, that's still your grandfather. You got to respect him. That's still your grandfather. You got to respect him. So because we love her so much and we value the things that she taught us and the things that she told us, we always lean to that. I remember when she was, getting ready to, pass on, and she told, my aunties, and she told us too, she told my aunties and my dad, that's still your father. You still have to give him his proper respect. Cool. Even when he do dumb crap, still got to give him his proper respect. Cool. For us, she told us the same thing. That's your grandfather, still got to give him proper respect. So with him being older now and getting to that, upper age, I remember when I went to go see him for, not last Christmas, Christmas before last. I went to go see him, and I took my daughter there. Like, my wife and I, we took our daughter to go see him, and it was cool. I hadn't seen him in a while. He got to meet my daughter for the first time, so it was cool to sit down and have a chat with him. And being there at the house, it gave a flush memories, because at one point we used to go over there frequently. When we were young, we used to go over there frequently. And the apartment's still the same, all this other stuff. And then, like, recently, I think they told me he was moving from there to, like, down south or somewhere, some craziness. But it's stuff like that when you're like, man, how many of those memories do you have? How many times were you there having conversations, right? Listening to him give some kind of knowledge or wisdom, or just mess with him because he had his little stash of quarters that me and my cousins know about. Next to his fishing post. It's still there to this day. It's crazy. But you think about that, right? Like, despite all of that stuff going on, like, I hadn't seen him in years. So, like, when I saw him, it was a sense of love, a sense of relief, just to be like, okay, hey, Grandpa, this is my daughter. And he got to see her, and pretty much she looked just I look like him because my dad looks just like him. If you take a picture of all three of us and put us together, you can be like, yeah, y'all related. And he can stick my daughter right there, and it's like, yep, she right there along with y'all. So it was pretty cool. And as you, like I said, it's just one of those things where, like, just being able to have that experience to sit down and have a conversation with him. Like, when I left that day, we cried, which is always a trip. But it was cool to go see him and spend some time with him for a little bit. Despite, like I said, despite all the craziness and stuff like that happened, like I said, there's still, at the end of the day, he's still grandpa, right? He still warrants that level of respect because he is an elder. He is, like I said, he's grandpa. So he's an elder, and that title, right, wrong, and different, comes with a level of respect that just has to be given. You might not always agree, and you might not always be in line with the person when they are an elder with their thought process or how they feel about stuff. But you should still always give them their just due and their respect because it comes with it, right? That time, that wisdom, that wealth of knowledge that they have, it just warrants it. Some people might disagree with that, but that's just how I feel about it and where I stand on it. And it's just about going through life and living it the best way you know how. And if you are a believer and a follower of Christ, you know that being the best version of yourself and giving the best version of yourself to people is what you do, right? That's how you provide care, love, forgiveness. When, people do things to you that you might not agree with or you might be upset about, you forgive them. And you keep forgiving and keep forgiving and keep forgiving because that's what, we were instructed to do from the big man upstairs. So I say in closing for this podcast on elders, for anyone that listens to this, obviously, if you have someone in your life that is an elder, if you have people in your life that are elders, give them the level of respect, give them that level of care, and be there for them like if they were for you when you were younger, like they were for you. And even if they weren't, still give them that level of care and respect. Because at some point in time, we're all going to get to an age where we're older, we need help, and we need to lean on somebody. And you never want to be that person when you hit that age and you're sitting back and thinking, while you're by yourself, like, am I by myself because I alienated people or I did things wrong to people and didn't do the right thing? Or if it's something where the people just don't care. I would rather be something where I can look at the people and say, okay, they just literally don't care for whatever reason that is. But I know I did everything I could and everything I was able to do during that time to make sure that they had and I was able to give them the knowledge and information that I had and possessed so that things in their life would be better or they could progress and be better any way, shape, or form that they could. So, like I said in closing, respect your elders, give them the love and just due. Don't shun them, even if they have a disability. Understand that they might be in a situation where they're not them normal selves. So give them some grace, give them some understanding, and be there to support them in the best way you can. If you have an elder that is not disabled or having any kind of disabilities, just show up there and give them some love. Show up there and just have a chat with them, talk to them, try to pull some information because they know a lot. They've been through some things and experienced some stuff that you might never come across in your life. But even with that, try to pull that knowledge and information. And if you don't have elders in your life for any shape or form or reason, hey man, there are plenty of retirement homes and senior centers around every place that you live. Go in there and have a visit. Go pop in and sit down with them and talk to them. And just give them that level of respect that they've earned and accomplished in their life. So, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Remember, like, listen, subscribe, and y'all have a good one.